Welcome to Fizzics TWIST. This week in science and technology, the Australian science news podcast for the scientifically curious, both neophytes and crackerjacks alike. We are powered by Fizzics Education, leading science communicators in the education space. It's our job to deliver exciting science content all around Australia, and what better way to do that than with a science lesson as big as Nick as the giant cow? Don't forget, we have an Instagram account now, which is at Fizzics TWIST. Be sure to follow us there for updates. In this episode of Fizzics TWIST, in ViralGram, Aussie students protest climate action. Or should that be inaction? Bazinga! In the lab with Quill, scientists might have found a sneaky solution to that horrible cancer problem. And in Far Out with Duncan, a space station robot gets a little cheeky. Now there's a sentence I never thought I'd read out loud. G'day, Quill.
Hey, Duncan.
How you doing?
I'm great. You?
I'm pretty good.
Awesome.
I wanted to talk some science today. What do you think?
Always.
Great. In fact, you know what? Instead of talking science straight off, let's talk about politics.
Ooh.
I know, right? Yep.
Science and politics.
I know. It's like dinner table conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. So I'm very proud of the young students of Australia today.
What have they done this time?
They have been out in droves.
Ooh.
Thousands and thousands of kids protesting in places like Martin Place. Where else did they go? They went to, the
Parliament House in
steps
Melbourne,
of Victorian Parliament House?
Yeah.
And they're protesting climate change.
Yeah.
The lack of climate action.
Yeah,
which
really
is
important.
Which is obviously really, really important, but they feel, and I think I feel as well, that not enough is being done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
It is a big problem. And I think it's fantastic that kids are out there protesting, making their voices heard. Mm-hmm. As far as I'm aware, it was started by two 14-year-olds in Melbourne, sort of taking inspiration from a Swedish girl who was doing the same thing.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, and it ended up being in every major city in Australia.
Fantastic.
And there was kids from kindergarten all the way up to high school. So It's pretty crazy. But it does make sense that, it's come to this point, I think, where, people are seeing the effects that climate change is having now in terms of like wild bushfires and like coral reef bleaching and
floods
so
one day, bushfires the next day.
Sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's pretty wild. And so they're basically thinking, look, I'm young right now.
Yeah.
I will live to see the effects of this.
They're the ones it's going to affect.
Yeah. And then,
Exactly.
We've got people in power who are not necessarily going to see those long-term effects, and it just ain't fair.
It's not
just
fair.
Ain't fair.
It's very unfair for people to be like basically ruining something that they're not going to have to deal with later on.
Precisely. Yeah. And you'd think they'd go, oh yeah, my kids and grandkids are going to have to deal with this, so I probably should maybe do a little something. But no, it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, it always actually amazes me that people will think of, I want to leave my children an inheritance of money or a home or whatever, but forget about, hey, maybe it would be good to inherit an earth that we can still breathe the air and we still have water. That would be
great.
Probably preferable to having a bit of money. It would be having oxygen and water to drink and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, the thing is, the current, I don't want to get really political in this, but the current government is saying, we're hitting all our targets that have been set, but frankly, first of all, the targets aren't very good.
No,
and
that's
second
right.
of all, they're not really being hit.
Yeah.
So the 2030 emission reduction targets are not on. We're not on track.
No.
To hit those, which is pretty shocking.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It really is, and so if we can't even manage to hit modest targets.
Yeah.
For only 12 years from now.
Yeah.
Then we're kind of, between a rock and a hard place, quite frankly.
Exactly. And modest targets is not really what we need. We need really, really drastic targets. So it's really easy to go, deal with that when it happens. But this is when it's happening and it needs to be dealt with now.
Yeah.
And we need to be flexible and change those. If we realise that the targets we've set aren't going to be enough, we need to change those targets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more done, and obviously so with these kids. So good on them for getting
so there
out
was
there.
Thousands of kids out there.
Yeah, thousands and thousands from 200 different schools, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I saw some footage on the news as well of, like, kids, you know, older kids speaking at these massive gatherings. But I saw some footage of, like, primary-age kids speaking at these gatherings. Yeah. And all sorts of stuff. It was great.
Some little legend was playing clarinet.
Yeah, fantastic.
Like, cool, not relevant, but great skills, man.
You know what? It's awesome. And, like, the thing is, and I did hear, like, a lot of people go, they just want a day off school or whatever. And the thing was, is, like, if they just want a day off school, they didn't have to go to the actual rally, right? They could have just said, okay, well, I'm going to this climate change thing, and then never showed up. But, you know, thousands of kids all across Australia are saying this isn't okay and you're ruining the world we need to live in, which is fantastic and good on them. And kids that are involved in their environment are actually probably the cleverer ones.
Yes, exactly. And if kids really wanted just a day off school, guess what? They just take a day off school and go to the mall. Like,
whatever, exactly.
Very easily
cool
done.
Kids do these days. Exactly. And you know what? Like, there was some really nasty things said about the people taking those days off, like these were the kids that were no hopers and all this kind of stuff.
It's like you're gonna end up in the dole line or something.
Horrible stuff. And the reality is that the kids that are aware that their future is in the environment and what's not happening and they're probably the kids that are going to be our best and brightest in the future. The ones that are recognising what's around them and passionate enough about it as a young age to actually do something about it.
It's kind of
fantastic. It's good work.
Heartwarming in a way.
It
because
is.
I think the kids who are like at the front line of those protests are probably going to be the kids who are at the front line of future governments.
Hopefully.
And it's like, if they're that sensible now, then that does give me a little bit of hope in the future.
Doesn't it?
When I'm an old man, it'll be good to see the young up-and-comers, you know?
Exactly. That's how I feel now, being an old lady and all. No, I actually, I felt, not that they're my kids, but I felt a sense of pride in those kids on, I think it was last Friday when all the stuff was on about it. I was like, you know, really amazed and proud that these kids are getting out there and trying to help save our Earth. And not only that, man, they had some cracker cards up there.
Oh, those signs were fantastic. So I've compiled a small list of signs that I just saw in footage and in photos that I saw in the media.
Yeah.
Because this is ViralGram, after all. Here's a fantastic one. I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA.
Brilliant.
So good. So good.
So good.
Then there's one that says Wake Up Scott. And it has a picture of ScoMo dressed up as Jeff from The Wiggles.
Yeah.
Get it?
So you got to say, Scott. Wake up, Scott.
Yeah.
In that way.
Is that how the song goes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trust me, I worked at a preschool.
Yeah, right. It's drilled into my brain.
Yeah.
Then there was If You Were Smart, We'd Be in School, which is like really drilling down to the heart of the issue right there.
Yep.
And this one was held up by a smaller child, which is just gold. I'll stop farting if you stop burning coal.
I love that. It's brilliant.
Only dinosaurs deny climate change. Gold. Why should we go to school if you won't listen to the educated? Wow. Sick burn. Sick burn.
Burn.
R.I.P. Earth, gonna miss you, boo.
Aww. That's really, that's sweet, but so sad that kids have to think about that kind of thing.
It's kind of cute being that, I miss you, boo.
Yeah.
Then There Is No Planet B.
100%.
Again, really hits to the core of the issue.
Yeah.
This one must have been from some sort of, at least a year 11 or 12 kid, because it's really well put. Unlike that sentence that I just managed to shuffle out. This one goes, civil disobedience requires no permission slip.
I love it.
Oh, man. Because I think they knew that by taking a day off school, then they'll get a little bit of...
in a little bit of trouble.
Backlash, I guess, from the old politicians there.
Yeah.
And then another good one, the oceans are rising and so are we.
I like that too.
That's great.
That makes me want to, do a fist pump in the air, go kids.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
We should play some Rage Against the Machine right now.
Yeah. I actually saw there was ones where kids were getting locked into their school. So they were trying to go to the protest and the schools had locked the gates.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. And what was cool was there was high school kids, but there was also a lot of primary kids there too, and parents that had taken... so I saw an interview with one dad that had taken a day off work because his daughter asked, and she was, I think, in year 4.
Yeah, right.
She wanted to go, so he took a day off work because he said, as I said, raising passionate and educated, but also, considerate and caring and aware children is very important. So he took a day off work to take his daughter to protest climate change.
What a legend.
Yeah.
Just the idea that you would, rally against the idea of protesting is just bizarre.
It is. It's very
really
strange.
is bizarre. It's like, so you missed a day of school. Do you have any idea how many days you spent in school?
Yeah.
Bloody millions.
Exactly. I'm not saying that you don't need to go to school.
No, of course not.
But missing a day here and there for something that is important to you
If it's that important to you,
is not a problem.
Yeah, by all means.
That's right. I mean, kids miss days of school for sporting activities, for drama, for all sorts of other things. Yeah. For climate should be definitely
Yeah,
one
the
of
fact
them.
that they are willing to take a day off school really should, smash it home just how
exactly.
passionate they are about that issue.
I think I saw most teachers were pretty supportive of it as well.
Yeah.
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 Like they
so
were really
I
proud.
saw some teachers actually got the permission of the parents in their classes to be like, hey, can we go to this protest? And all the parents would be like, yep, sign the permission slip. Teacher would take them to the protest.
That's fantastic. In fact, I saw an interview with a kid from Byron High, so my local area,
Nice.
and which is obviously a very passionate area about environment and stuff like that. And there was only one kid left in class.
One kid in class. That's amazing. That poor kid. He's like, can I come too?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe they didn't care, or maybe they forgot.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm not sure, but yeah. So, but anyway, good on you, kids. We're very proud to see that, and hopefully they might listen a little bit when they realise that all the future voters, this is what we want.
Yeah. Oh my God. I bet you ScoMo is poo-pooing himself right now, being like, oh dear, 3-4 years' time, a whole lot of those kids are going to be of voting age.
And that's important because we need to stop worrying about, if it saves us $20 a year, but if we don't have any oxygen left, then who cares about $20 a year or something, whatever.
Exactly.
Today I think we're going to do something a little bit different to On the Green.
On the Green with Quill is a fantastic segment.
I know.
We've had it pretty much every episode since we started doing segments, I believe.
But I can't be on the green all the time.
No, that is very true.
Sometimes I've got to be in the lab.
Yeah, if you're on the green, you're going to get a sunburn. It's hard work out there.
It's summer, man. I've got to get out of being on the green.
Exactly. Sometimes you've got to go inside, get rid of that tan you've been working on.
Yeah, that's right.
Hit the lab.
All
right, let's hit the lab.
We used to call it a lab tan. Okay, so...
It's like my trucker tan. You seen my trucker tan?
Yeah, I've got
one.
It's
not good. It's not good.
The driving aside. Okay, so this is really, really interesting. This was some new information that came out very recently. So I found this on the ABC News website.
Oh, friends of the podcast. ABC, yeah,
we love the ABC. And this is these people these scientists that are working at the Australian Institute of Bioengineering and Nanotechnology at the University of Queensland have found, they've actually identified some biomarkers for cancer.
What is a biomarker? Before you go any further, because you're explaining.
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, because I am a dilettante when it comes to this stuff. As in, I'm a total layman. I have no idea what you're talking about. So please,
so you needed the same level of explanation for this as I need for space stuff. So basically, biomarkers are essentially a naturally occurring thing, so a naturally occurring molecule or a gene or a characteristic. So it's like a little flag that naturally occurs in the body that basically says, "Here I am."
Yep.
Here I am. So then you put a little flag on your sandwich, say this one's egg and this one's tuna or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Similar thing on the body to go, hey, here I am, I'm cancer.
Yeah.
Now, these aren't necessarily...
It's the worst sandwich ever.
Exactly. And these aren't necessarily easy things to find. And there's not biomarkers for everything, okay? So it's not like you just go, I just got to find that little flag with a horrible picture of a horrible cancer. That's not really how it works. But these scientists have developed and found a simple test that's able... because they found this biomarker, a simple test where you can test for cancer in a blood or biopsy tissue test, which is amazing.
Wait. Any type or just some types of cancer?
I'm glad you asked that. That was what I was getting to.
Yep.
So basically there's heaps of different kinds of cancer.
Yeah.
And even breast cancer alone, there's 12 different kinds of breast cancer.
Yeah.
So what's the problem is that cancer is so varied that it makes it really, really hard to find things like biomarkers because you're not finding something that's the same for all cancers.
Yeah,
okay? So,
cancer as a word is really just a massive umbrella term, I guess, for different conditions that all share something in common, which is just outrageous, uncontrolled growth, right?
Exactly. But what we want to find is something that, because if you're always trying to do research to find a way to test for every different one, it's really hard because there's so many different kinds. But if you could find a way to test for as many as possible, it would be amazing and it would be really, really helpful. And this looks like a really promising start to doing that. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I've heard a lot, over the past couple of years, it comes up on the news every now and then, being like, oh, a new detection method for cancer or a new cure for cancer has come out.
Yeah.
And you never hear about it ever again.
Yeah.
Do you think, you being the expert in this, do you think that this is going to make a bit of a wave, or do you think it's going to be the kind of thing that we're just not going to hear about in a couple of years' time?
Okay, well, look, let me give you a bit of a rundown on what they've actually discovered, because that might help to kind of illuminate what's going on here. So often what we do is people find something new, and it takes a long time to find new stuff in science, especially with disease research. So because you find something and go, cool, this is happening, we found that this works in mice. And then from there it might be 30 years before you actually are allowed to, because you've got to do so many tests to make sure everything's safe in humans and all this kind of stuff.
And the mouse models are not a very good model.
Yeah, it's a great starting point, but then you might need to take it into a bigger animal that maybe replicates human body more similarly, and then you need to actually do basic clinical trials with humans, and then you might actually do proper ones. So there's a huge process, and all of this requires so much ethics and all that kind of stuff as well. But this one has found something which is hopefully something that will actually pass through quicker, because it's not... You're not actually giving them a drug, right? It's not so it's like a drug where you got to test it and make sure there's no crazy side effects or anything.
Yeah.
What you're doing is taking a little bit of blood from them and testing that.
Oh.
So it's not like you need that same kind of ethics, because you're not going to potentially make them sick or something like that, okay? So basically what they found this biomarker, and what it is they're looking at what's called a methyl group.
Okay.
Now, so you get your basic DNA, right? So everyone has DNA, and we have DNA for our regular cells and stuff, but there's also different DNA for cancer cells.
Really?
People in the past have tried to find specifically DNA for cancer cells, and that has been very difficult to use that as a biomarker. But what they have found is that methyl groups are pretty much like, it's called methylation, and basically decorates DNA. So it kind of like, imagine you've got all this DNA, and methyl groups, imagine are like a flower. Okay, sure. So you imagine you got this long stretch of garden, and that's your DNA, and it's just dirt. But then you're going to pop some flowers around.
Yep.
Okay,
that's a methyl group.
That's the methyl group.
Cool.
Now imagine in a normal cell, you just spread those flowers out, kind of evenly and widely distributed along the garden. Now what happens is when you have got the cancer cells, is you end up with these huge clumps of like hundreds of flowers in one spot, but not anywhere else.
Yep.
And you have these really clumped up ones, and they happen at specific places. And this is what's been shown so far to be common in lots of different kinds of cancer. So it's been shown to be common in a lot of different kinds of breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, and also lymphoma. So all of these different ones have shown that they get this really heavy kind of clustering of methyl groups in the cancer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And also because those cancers that you're talking about, as far as I'm aware, they're actually among the most common ones.
They are, and they're some of the most common ones. So amazing, and that includes all the different kinds of breast cancers, which is like 12 or so different breast cancers as well. So it's a huge number of cancers to be able to potentially use a simple blood test to do it, to find it out. Now, when you're looking for this, what actually happens is, imagine those flowers, they're not just sitting there. So what actually happens is this is when we go into what's called epigenetics, which is basically like you have your genes, you have your DNA, but we don't actually have everything that's in our DNA. It doesn't actually like come out and show.
Okay.
So like you might have all these other genes, but they're not necessarily switched on.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, they're it's not junk necessarily.
Yeah, no.
But just genes that are not being expressed.
Yeah, so you can have stuff that's not expressed. And so the description that ABC used in their website was actually a really good one. It's like your phone has a bunch of apps. Yeah. But it's only the apps that are on and being used.
I really just use Instagram these days.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought was a really nice example of a kind of reference of how that kind of people can understand that. So that was pretty cool. And what's really awesome about it is what they found is they detect the cancer cells by what actually happens is these cancer cells in a special solution actually fold into a 3D shape.
Whoa.
So they fold up in essence when they're in this solution, and so that they can put the blood into the solution and the DNA will fold up. And then what you have is these, once they fold it up into this kind of clump, it sticks to little gold particles. So
particles.
Yeah, so little nanoparticles.
Gold!
Little nano gold particles. And then it actually means you have a change of colour, so that you literally just add some blood into this gold particle solution. It changes colour, and you can go, okay, there's DNA, there's markers in there for cancer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds very much like our CSI forensics program that we run for birthday parties at Fizzics Education. Yeah,
but amazing
really awesome.
to be able to literally take some blood and test it just by literally adding it to a solution and seeing a colour change.
Yeah.
It's so simple and so important for so many different kinds of cancer.
Wild.
Yeah.
I thought it would, I thought if we ever sort of figured this out, it would be, taking blood and then it gets analysed for months and months and months or something like that. But instead, it's just like you just go, bloop, and it changes colour and you go, yeah.
I mean, so at the moment, one of the limitations is it only tells you that there is cancer present.
Not what type.
Not what type,
or
and also
stage
not what stage it's at and stuff like that. But, I mean, if it's something that people started to then just screen for, I mean, and at the moment they don't know what other, it could be in other cancers as well. It might end up being something that shows up in so many different kinds of cancers. At least then you can start to look for areas where you might have a cancer.
Yeah, and if that taking blood and testing becomes part of your, say, 6-monthly checkup when you go to the doctor, you're pretty much going to catch it at the early stages.
Exactly, and that can be so important also for survival and stuff like that.
Because, like, the best way of beating cancer is to catch it early.
Exactly.
If you get to, like, stage 3 or stage 4, it's a lot more difficult.
Exactly.
But if, do a 3-month checkup. Maybe
and it's such a simple mechanism to test it. So they've got a bunch, obviously they have to do a lot more clinical trials and all this stuff, but...
But it's not invasive.
Really
there's no ethics considerations to take into account.
Exactly. So it's really exciting. Like, I got a little shiver down my spine when I read that one.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well
so
done,
congratulations to them. There's some amazing research being done, and that's really awesome.
Where you say UQ? University of Queensland?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a local homegrown Aussie story.
Some Aussie stories.
Aussie.
Great work.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I really liked your explanation, Quill. That was really good.
Thank you.
I just had to like stop talking and just be like, this is good. I'm not going to interrupt.
I didn't want to go into too much detail, but I wanted to get it out there so people could understand what it was. Because sometimes it's hard when these stories are out there and it goes into too much scientific jargon and you don't really know what they're talking about. Which is why we try to untwist it.
That's exactly right. Untwist. Even though this is in the lab with Quill, just to clarify.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So if you do want to look that up, I would think just Google something like Researchers discovers unique cancer biomarker.
Or you can put a link in the show notes.
Or that's a very good point. We'll put a link in the show notes to our friends of the podcast at the ABC.
Great stuff.
We're such like lefties, hey? Like, save the ABC. Protest climate change.
It's not even on purpose. I think that's a common link to scientists because you often quite care about the Earth and stuff like that.
It's a pretty big deal.
And scientific funding and those kind of things. But anyway.
Should we move on?
Yes. Let me go.
What?
Let me guess. Let me go.
What are you guessing?
Let me guess. Space junk.
Yeah. No, it's not space junk. This is space classic quality content is what it is. It's Far Out with Duncan.
Ooh.
And in this one, I mean, there's actually been a lot of fantastic space news that's come out recently. Like SpaceX just had another launch, and I don't know, some other things. We talked about the InSight Lander last week, so if you missed that, check that out. But this one I think is a little bit more lighthearted, which is, I just find it to be hilarious and kind of like...
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's just this weird sort of like prophecies coming true, but not in the way that you would think kind of thing. In that what happened is that on the International Space Station now, they have this little robot called CIMON. It's actually CIMON with a C, so it's Crew Interactive Mobile Companion. And it's kind of like if you have like Google Home or Siri or Alexa or something like that. It's that inside this robot on the International Space Station that floats, right? And it's got artificial intelligence from IBM Watson, which is their artificial intelligence program.
Cool.
But yeah, it floats there because obviously no gravity up in the International Space Station. Well, that's not technically true, but that's an explanation for another time.
Yeah.
So it floats there. And I watched a video of it, and it's so awesome because you can actually ask it to turn around.
Yeah.
And it goes like, what do they say? Like, positive yaw 90 degrees. And it spins around, presumably using gyroscopes in there. It just goes... And
in the air.
In the air.
That's pretty cool.
It's so awesome. Anyway... point of the robot is basically to assist the crew of the International Space Station with tasks.
Yeah.
So it could be really, really simple stuff like, hey, can you tell me what the next step in this process is going to be?
Yeah, cool.
Can
you put some tunes on?
Can you put some tunes on? Exactly, which is exactly what they asked it to do in the one that I watched. He asks, one of the scientists on the ISS actually asks him to play a song, and he plays The Man Machine by a band called Kraftwerk, which is like this synthesizer band from like the 80s. It's so funny. Anyway, so this starts playing Kraftwerk. And they have this weird conversation which starts off really like lighthearted and small talk and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, it starts to get quite dark.
Oh.
And Simon asks the scientist, he goes, "Don't you like it here with me?" It's like, whoa, the robot is getting insecure.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it doesn't feel like everyone loves him.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, poor Simon.
So the scientist is asking him to do things, and the robot Simon says, "Don't be so mean, please." It's so weird.
Wow.
Yeah, so this robot is like becoming sentient and insecure. It's so bizarre. IBM, what are you doing?
Isn't there a movie like this where the spacecraft goes like nutso and then
So 2001?
Yeah, that's the... Oh, yeah, it's in the note. Yeah, great.
So that was HAL 9000, and he's like,
yes.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave.
Yeah. It gets kind of creepy, right?
It's super creepy. Because he's just this like
really
glowing red eye.
That's right.
And he's like, I'm afraid I can't do that. And then like shuts people out of the space station.
That's right.
It kills the astronauts and stuff.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Simon is just floating there independently, isn't actually connected to any of the space station, doesn't have any control over it whatsoever.
Right.
And it should be a lot nicer.
Right. So Simon's just got a little bit of sad sacks. Maybe he's just missing home. He's been there for a year.
He misses his IBM computer friends.
Oh, poor Simon.
So funny.
That's pretty funny.
But then I think Simon gets a little bit cheered up.
Yep.
Because it's so weird. Because the scientist praises him. He's like, good work on doing a little flying, turning around in microgravity.
Nice.
It's
so he
so
just
funny.
needed a bit of positive reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
We all need a bit of encouragement here and there. But I mean,
he's got a cute little face as well with a screen on it.
Aww.
And he's got cameras and you can like talk to him.
But I feel like if they're going to start making these things with AI, right, then surely they're going to... I guess this is the whole AI debate, but it's like, if you're going to start making things that respond and talk to humans in a human-like way, then it makes sense that they're going to start to feel... If they're trained to feel human emotions in sense of the way they speak to us, they surely must start to understand, if not feel, but understand and recognise the, like, speech patterns where... This is a nasty way you're speaking to me and I should be offended of that.
I think that's kind of what they were working on. That's what they're trying to do. But they just haven't got it quite right
Not
yet.
quite
because
right.
he was being perfectly
sensitive.
nice. Yeah, he's just saying, hey, can you please turn around your 90 degrees and can you like tell me the next instruction? And then he's like, don't be so mean.
Oh, okay. So Simon's a little bit too sensitive.
It's a bit too sensitive. So presumably in version 1.1 or Simon 2.0, they might fix that. They might dial down the sensitivity.
I feel like we're going to get a story about like Simon 2.0 where Simon's like full of attitude and he's like really nasty and they've gone too far the other way.
That would be so good.
Get wrecked, me, Simon.
That would be amazing. But then that would become a real problem as well.
Yeah. And it won't do the tasks it's supposed to do.
Like a really like moody teenager.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, like Simon gets up at like midday. So I don't want to go to school today, Mum.
I don't want to spin 90 degrees. You spin 90 degrees.
You're yourself 90 degrees.
So funny. Wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I kind of want a robot.
Well, if you have a Google Home, you basically have the same thing. It just doesn't have a fancy little face on it.
I don't have a Google Home.
You should get one.
I don't think I have enough electrical things in my home to control with the Google Home.
Well, fair enough. You should live a minimalist lifestyle. We're not going to endorse any products on Fizzics TWIST.
I do try to live a minimalist lifestyle.
I know you do. You're a giant hippie. I know this.
But what will it control? My music?
Yeah.
That's it. I can it probably takes more effort to control my music than it does to just turn my
it's such a pain. See, I've got one. We've got like 2 or 3 in my house. And so someone will be talking in the other room and they're like, hey Google, can you play this band?
Yeah.
And then it'll either start playing on mine or mine will just go, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah,
no one's talking to you, bro. Just chill out.
I feel like I have enough issues with talking to my Google when I'm driving and actually trying to get into things because I can't use my hands. But I don't want to bring that into my home.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever I try to call my mum, it always tries to call my dad, and then I end up having to talk to my dad. Not that I don't love you, Dad. I know you do listen to the podcast.
Good save.
But it always calls my dad when I try to call my mum, and I'm like, I've cleared it up, and now it's just called Mum and Dad, but it still always says, call Dad, and I'm like, no, call Mum, and then it's calling.
That's the kind of problem that you really don't want to have in a space station robot.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're like, call Houston.
Yeah.
And it's like, calling Houston. And you're like, no! Houston? I don't know.
Order pizza.
Yeah, totally. Calling Domino's. Your order comes to $35 million.
Delivery fee.
Yeah.
So I think, it's pretty cool. I still would like a little robot.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. But hopefully we don't hear about this little robot going evil.
CIMON 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So there you go. That's the end of that. Far Out with Duncan on a lighter,
The lightest note.
Lighter mood. Oh.
Because there's no gravity.
Oh, good content. Cool. So I think we should move on to Fact of the Week.
Fact of the Week.
The synth recently has been going, Fact of the Week.
Oh.
Like Fact of the Week.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The synth has a mind of its own. I don't tell it what to do. It's like a little CIMON.
It's your own little angry robot.
Exactly, yeah.
It thinks it's a DJ, but it's not.
Totally.
Oh.
I say, look, could you just say Fact of the Week in a normal way? And it goes, no, I'm going to go Fact of the Week. Fact of the Week. Like, it's very
Getting
strange.
sass.
Very
All right,
weird.
so...
Yeah, let's move on.
Fact of the Week. Okay, this one I think you probably know, but it's an interesting one, and maybe some people around the world don't know.
Around the world, you say?
That's our listeners. And since they say around the world, that was on purpose.
Yep.
Did you know the Earth, in fact, is not round?
Not round.
No.
I knew that. It's flat, isn't it?
It's absolutely not flat.
What?
Not flat.
But the Flat Earth Society told me that it's flat.
Don't even get me started on people that think the Earth is flat.
We can start on that.
So, the Earth is not perfectly round. It's what we actually call an oblate spheroid.
Spheroid.
I've always said spheroid.
I think it's spheroid.
Oh.
I've always heard.
It makes sense because you call it a sphere.
Spheroid.
But I always said spheroid. Anyway, there you go.
Well, to each their own.
Yeah.
Potato.
No, spheroid makes sense now that I'm looking at it. I think I've never read it out loud, to be honest.
Yeah,
I just always said it in my head. Yeah. Anyway,
yes,
so that
not
means it's not quite round.
And what is an oblate spheroid?
It's a sphere. No, it's a sphere that is squashed at the poles.
At the top and bottom.
Yep. And it's swollen at the equator.
There you go.
So on the sides, I guess you could kind of say.
Do spheres have tops and sides? Not really.
Well, we do on the way we think about how the way our Earth is.
Yeah.
So if you think about the North and South Pole as being the tops, and then the kind of the round middle part as being the sides. So
basically, the Earth is like short and fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much like me in my later years. Anyway.
I feel like you were going to say much like you then, and then backtracked.
No, I would never.
All right. So, so basically it's kind of a squished up sphere.
Yeah.
Okay? And what's really cool, I always thought this was a little bit squished. But did you know that actually the sea level is 21 kilometres greater at the equator than at the poles?
The sea level is 21 kilometres greater. So it's 21 kilometres higher at the equator than at the poles.
Squished out.
That's heaps.
That's heaps, right?
Oh my God.
I always thought maybe a foot or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So 21 kilometres. You know, how many football fields do you think that is?
I actually was going to look that up and I forgot.
Well, it's approximately 21,000 divided by 100. It's about 210 to 20 football fields.
So that's how much
fatter it is at the equator.
Yeah.
There you go.
And on each side because it's the sea level.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's amazing.
Which I thought was really, really interesting.
So why is that?
And it is to do with mass. Okay, so basically we have a gravitational pull of mass, which means gravity. We don't just have gravity because we have gravity.
Yep.
We have gravity because of the mass. So mass has its own gravity, kind of pulls things towards it.
Yep.
Okay, so and when we say in space there's no gravity, that's not really true. What it is that in the openness of space there's no gravity, but different planets and suns and black holes and all these things have a gravitational pull because of their mass. So basically the bigger the mass, the more the gravitational pull.
Hence why everything revolves around the sun.
Yeah, exactly. So we're basically revolving because we're being drawn towards the sun because of its mass. And so the mass of the Earth is not evenly distributed.
Right.
So it's kind of like we're a little bit lumpy and bumpy.
Yeah.
Because its mass isn't even everywhere.
Like
so
me.
the gravitational pull isn't even everywhere. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, which I think is really cool. And this is also part, like, if you think about tides, which you can get big fluctuations in tides as well, we know that the tides kind of mess around with this a little bit more again because you've got a gravitational pull towards the moon and the sun. Mostly the moon because that's closer, and the moon is mostly in control of the tides, but the sun has a bit of an effect as well.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting because even though I kind of knew that the world wasn't exactly perfectly round, I didn't realise it was that much.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's really cool. So now if you meet a flat earther who says the Earth is flat and someone else says, no, it's round, you can say, no, it's not. It's neither of those. It's an oblate spheroid.
It's an oblate spheroid.
Yes,
perfect.
very good.
And I mean, have you ever, like, people often say, like, what's the evidence for the Earth not being flat? And that's that really beautiful one they say is that, I think it was one of the original kind of discoveries of why, was that if you see a boat coming up along the horizon, it just appears, right? So it doesn't just come towards you. It appears, it basically looks like it's moving from downwards upwards.
Up.
Yeah, it rises, which is obviously you've got that curved surface for that to happen, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you get a ball and draw something on there, you can do that experiment and like spin it around and look at it.
Yeah, true.
It's pretty cool.
I've seen, I saw a little documentary about that actually. Like, it's amazing that we have to make these documentaries to prove that the Earth is round. But what they did is they found this massive, massive lake. It was probably one of the Great Lakes in the US. You know, one of the so big that they're more like a sea.
Yeah, the lakes where you always think it's the sea, but it's a lake. Yeah,
it just goes forever, like possibly dozens or hundreds of kilometers. But anyway, so what they did is they got people in a helicopter, went over the horizon from the perspective of someone who was sitting on the shore, and they started to land the helicopter, and before it had landed, the helicopter disappeared from view beneath the horizon.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, clearly
there you go.
it's round.
Yeah.
Sorry. Clearly, it's an oblate spheroid.
Clearly, it's an oblate spheroid. And not a perfect oblate spheroid because it's got bumpy bits to it too.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's a bumpy oblate spheroid.
Yes, it's very, very bumpy. Here's an interesting fact. If you took the Earth and shrunk it down to the size of a pool ball...
Like pool table.
Pool table ball, yeah. Not a, like a beach ball.
Like a beach ball in the pool.
No, a pool table ball.
Yeah.
You shrunk it down. Even though it's bumpy, even though the Earth is obviously very bumpy, if you think about mountains and valleys and oceans and rivers, even though it's bumpy, it would actually be smoother than an actual pool ball.
This is because the bumps that we have in the scale...
Yeah, relative to the actual size of the Earth, are tiny. So Mount Everest, even though it's 8,000-something meters high, if you shrink the Earth down, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's like a couple of atoms, higher.
And which is like the equivalent of like a speck of dust. Not even a speck of dust, a speck of atom on a pool ball, which is why it's smoother.
Exactly. Isn't that amazing? Interesting.
When you said that before, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. But then when I
clarified it a little bit better,
you did clarify it better. Yeah. How cool.
I know. So there you go. That's your fact of the week. Earth is not round.
Yeah, but don't go thinking it's flat, please.
No, please. I think that's a wrap on Fizzics Twist for this week. Quill, is that a wrap on Fizzics Twist for this week?
I think so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us, dear listeners. And don't forget, you can meet the wonderful people of physics at your school, vacation centre, or birthday party. Just go to fizzics.com.au. Anything else to say, Quill?
Don't forget, if you enjoy listening to our podcast, please rate us on iTunes. It really helps us out, or wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget to tune in to the Fizzics Ed podcast, which is run by our lovely boss, Ben Newsom. And I think that's about it.
And follow us on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
At Fizzics TWIST. Yep, find us there. Hopefully we'll be posting up some spicy content pretty soon. We'll see what it is. I don't know. It's going to be a surprise to all of us.
Let's find something about chili next week.
There. Can we eat chili? While doing the podcast, that'd be amazing.
I'm just warning you, I love chili.
Yeah.
So you might be in trouble. Let's do it. It's
Bye.
on. Bye.